Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana Yasoda Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishma Paramatma Rajagacharya Sadasi Swadesi Bhaktivedanta Samsara Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Govardhan Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Ki Jai Navadavda Ki Jai Gang Shamana Tasi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Go Premanandi All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. So it's our great fortune today to have the association of His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj. Hari Bol! His Holiness has been giving the series of sequence of verses on Shishtastakam, which is the only literature which is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Only 8 verses Mahaprabhu has given, and they are the condensed philosophy, condensed rasa which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to give to this world. So the explanation of these verses can actually give us completely clear understanding of what a sadhaka should actually do progressively. And His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj has been giving such wonderful explanations. Last time Maharaj discussed about Shishtastakam verse 5, and where Maharaj talked about the how within the bhakti, within the Adav Shraddha itself, there is willingness to give up material attachments, because if that's not there, then it becomes the 10th offense Maharaj was talking about. Then he was saying, of course, but we don't cultivate renunciation, we cultivate attraction to Krishna. So therefore verse 5 is Maharaj told about, it's at the stage of asakti, and where the reflection of Krishna's manifestation starts happening gradually. And the element of devotion, Maharaj was stressing that it's not, bhakti is not just the engagement of senses, but engagement of senses including along with the element of devotion, which is the desire to please Krishna. That gradually leads to bhava. And then Maharaj was talking that how counterpart of it is that when there is no desire, therefore we don't give up other attractions. When there is no desire to please Krishna, then we don't desire to give up other attractions. And similarly, Maharaj talked about that how the activities which we do in sadhana of hearing and chanting, they become the anubhavas in the bhava stage. That was a very wonderful explanation which Maharaj last time gave. So today Maharaj will continue with the verse number 6 of the Shishtastakam. Come, let's welcome His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj by 3 times loudly chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Maharaj will explain the verse number 6 of Shishtastakam.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Buddhadeshi Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhastachadesha Tarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is the 6th verse of the Shishtashtaka. Nayanam Galadasrudaraya Varanam Gadgada Rudaya Gira Pulakarnichitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati. Here we have some of the symptoms of Bhava stage, which means these symptoms arise because one has direct contact with the Supreme Lord. So in Bhava's stage, one can see the form of the Lord and begin to appreciate His qualities and His pastimes directly. So one has developed spiritual eyes and spiritual body and spiritual mind, etc. So this is a very advanced stage. It's not the highest stage because Bhava is considered to be the bud of prema, or the sprout of prema ankura. So just as a bud turns into a flower, so Bhava turns into prema, and then it fully manifests its qualities. So the basic qualities are manifested within Bhava itself. The definition is given in the Nectar Devotion of Bhava, and it's said to be one ray of the sun of prema. So it is very similar to prema, just as one ray of the sun is like the sun. At the same time, it's different because the ray is not the whole sun. So prema is like the sun, and bhava is one ray of the sun. So it's nothing in comparison with prema, but at the same time, it's the same quality. And this distinguishes it from sadhana bhakti, whether it is raganuga sadhana or vaidhi sadhana. It is a realization of the Lord. So along with that, we get certain symptoms, which are described in this verse, with the tears flowing from the eyes and the voice choking up and hairs standing on end. These are actually called sattvika bhavas. And later on in Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami defines these. What are these sattvika bhavas? So that sattva is an intense state of joy within the living entity, which causes disruption of the bodily functions. Of course, these are spiritual bodies, not material bodies. So the whole body becomes disturbed because of the great intense emotions, and they manifest externally as the sattvika bhavas. So we can say the external symptoms due to great internal disturbance caused by great attachment to the Lord. So they may arise through joy or through sorrow or separation or whatever, and we get these symptoms. So they are not conscious endeavors. Of course, in the material world, actors can cry or do all sorts of things. They don't have those emotions at all, but they can project, emotions of crying and laughing, etc., and ecstatic symptoms. But that is not the point. These are simply the symptoms of the great joy that comes from within. So, therefore, they could not be imitated in any way. When we have imitation of this, it is called Bhava Bhas. And, of course, that has two types as well, but one of which is not so good. So, the stage of Bhava is a very exalted state, and apart from the ecstatic symptoms that we have described in this verse, then we have a whole list of symptoms which Rupa Goswami classes as anubhavas in relation to the person in bhava stage. So these are general characteristics. The person, they are tolerant, they don't waste their time, they don't have any pride, they have confidence in getting the Lord's mercy, they're detached from material enjoyment, they have great longing for the Lord, they have a taste for chanting the name of the Lord, they have attachment discussing about the Lord's qualities, and they have attachment to living in the abode of the Lord. So these are some of the symptoms of a devotee who has attained bhava stage. So these are not an exhaustive list by any means, but these are some of the main symptoms of a person. So we have the sattvika bhavas, that's one thing, element, and this is the other aspects called the anubhavas. So by this, one can, to some degree, judge if a person is at that stage by having these symptoms. Of course, anyone could act out these symptoms and pretend to be attached to the name and live in the holy dham and not waste his time and be tolerant, and then also have sattvika bhavas. One could do that also. But in the long run, we see that these symptoms should manifest, as a general characteristic, like detachment from material enjoyment and longing for the Lord. It's not a temporary thing; it's a continuous amount of qualities here we have. So, if we observe the person for a long time, then we can see whether he's simply imitating or actually he has these qualities. So, this stage of bhava is described or it's defined as being not a creation. It's a manifestation. That actually is described in the definition of sadhana bhakti, because sadhana produces a result called the sadhya. So, but then if we have some result coming, is it something new? And if it's something new, then it's not eternal. But everything spiritual should be eternal. So bhava should be eternal. So it cannot be created but through sadhana. Yet we say that we do sadhana and then there's bhava as a result. That's its immediate goal. So then the answer is that it's not created, it is manifested. So the process of bhakti and sadhana, is engagement of the senses and mind, manifests the bhava, which is eternal. Nityasiddhasya bhavasya prakritam. So it manifests within the jiva, this particular bhava, but it's actually eternal. Of course, we can also say that bhakti itself is eternal. In the spiritual world, obviously, everyone is hearing and chanting, remembering, so those processes are also eternal. Now we're doing it in a different form. It's called sadhana. Because we have material attractions and we're trying to attain purification and more attraction to Krishna, so we call it sadhana there. But actually the processes themselves are eternal as well. So they're not also created through material energy. So that is why we also say that what is the cause of bhakti? It cannot be any material process like karma or jnana, because karma arises from tamagun and rajagun, and sattva arises, or jnana arises from sattvagun. So bhakti cannot arise through gunas or anything out of the gunas. So therefore, the direct cause of bhakti can never be either jnana or karma yoga, because they're in the gunas and they cannot create bhakti which is spiritual. So therefore, bhakti manifests itself bhakti causes bhakti. Huh? In this way, bhakti itself is eternal as well. So, in the beginning definition of bhakti, Krishna Anusilanam, there in the commentaries of Jiva and Vishwanath, they analyze that this Anusilanam, or cultivation of a relationship with Krishna, has two elements, Cheshta Rupa and Bhava Rupa. So the Cheshta Rupa means actions, Bhava means emotions. So both are cultivation. We should not think that the Bhava is not a cultivation. It is also a cultivation. The emotion itself establishes a relationship with Krishna. We call this the Sthayi Bhava. So this is part of Anusilanam. And without that, the Cheshta also is rather useless. We can do all the activities of bhakti, but we don't have any bhakti, then it's not called bhakti. Imitation bhakti. So the activities definitely are good, but at the same time, we should have that element of devotion there somewhere. So, of course, the seed of that is Shraddha, or faith. And then we do the process of bhakti, and gradually we get the seed of bhakti, and it develops until it turns into bhava. So the element of bhava rupa bhakti is not very apparent in the beginning stages. Cheshta rupa is very prominent, and the very definition of sadhana bhakti is engagement of the senses. So that's Cheshta rupa. But through that, the bhava manifests at the bhava stages. So, in other words, the Cheshta rupa is a means to manifest bhava, or bhava rupa bhakti. But it's not created, it simply manifests. So it's actually eternal, but it manifests at that stage of bhava. What this means is that through the activities of bhakti, along with that faith and little bit of devotion that we have, the method gradually increases our bhakti, and it decreases our material tendencies. So we get anartana vritti, etc. going on, and then we get development of nishta, ruchi, asakti, which means increase of the bhakti. And as we get more and more increase, we get less and less attachment to material things. Anartha vritti is taking place. Until we get to bhava, in which the bhakti is so strong, it is called bhava at that stage. And the anartha is very, very little at that stage, almost unnoticeable. So that is the stage of bhava. But we do not stop the Cheshta Rupa Bhakti. That continues. It's no longer called sadhana. But we see here, there is chanting of the holy name, discussing the Lord's qualities, living in the holy world. These are all Cheshta Rupa Bhakti. So that those things continue in bhava and prema, along with that bhava. So the bhava is said to be the sthayi bhava. This is one element of rasa. We have 5 elements of rasa. Sthayi bhava, which is the relationship you have with Krishna. It could be santa, dasya, sakya, vatsalya, or madhurya. Then we get the anubhavas, which we saw in some of the anubhavas here. And we get the sattvika bhavas, these ones. And we get vyabhachari bhavas, very temporary little emotions. So they combine together to produce rasa. Right? The other one is vibhava, that is Krishna and the devotee. We have to have 2 people involved. So, we say the sthayi bhava is the relationship between the 2 persons is the sthayi bhava. And through that then we get anubhavas and sattvika bhavas and vyabhachari bhavas. So the vibhava, the devotee in Krishna, and the sthayi bhava are very, very important. So this is established in the bhava stage. We get the devotee with his spiritual form. We get Supreme Lord with his spiritual form, and we get manifestation of the Sthayi Bhava. Huh? So in the definition of Bhava Bhakti, the definition is that it's Sudasattva Visheshatma, a particular type of Sudasattva. That is the nature of Bhava. So the commentaries say this means it's a combination of Hladini and Samvit Shaktis. That's the special sattva at this stage. Huh? So in other words, Bhava, Bhakti, is actually a manifestation of Krishna's Hladini and Samvit Shaktis, part of his internal energy, manifested in the Jiva. How did it manifest? It grew until it developed the flower, so to speak. Starting with the seed of bhakti and faith and all that, and then we cultivate it with hearing and chanting, etc., Cheshta Rupa Bhakti, and then we get the flower manifesting, bhava manifesting finally out of the whole thing. So it's not something suddenly appeared from nowhere. There's a particular method and a particular origin, and it developed and it manifests as bhava. That is Hladini Samvit Shakti. When this advances, then it becomes fixed in the jiva. So the jiva is by nature tatastha Shakti, but he gets a portion of the internal energy of Krishna also, the Antaranga Shakti, that is Hladini Samvit Shakti, is added to him. And this becomes his permanent asset in prema. And it never leaves him. So that devotee in prema is very different from the jivas of the material world, because he's got this internal energy of the Lord inside the jiva. And the jivas of the material world don't have that internal energy. So very, very different, Prem Bhakta. So the initial stage is this Bhava stage. So few Sattvika Bhavas manifest at this stage. Not all of them, and not so intensely. Later on in the Nectar Devotion, in the section concerning the different elements of rasa, then it's described how the Sattvika Bhavas have different stages also of intensity until we get very, very intense stage, which manifests in higher types of prema, in which all the Sattvika Bhavas manifest very intensely for a long time. And if it's very weak, as in Bhava stage, then we get a few of the Sattvika Bhavas manifesting sometimes. Okay, so the 8 symptoms are being stunned, body cannot move, trembling of the body, perspiring, standing of hairs on end, change of color, weeping, choking, and fainting. So these are the qualities. And we get anubhavas. So these are the active portions. So in sadhana bhakti, we do Cheshta Rupa Bhakti. So this becomes anubhavas in bhava and prema, elements of rasa. So whatever we do now is a practice for the elements of rasa in terms of anubhavas. So we may get many, many different anubhavas manifesting at this stage. These are some of the general anubhavas mentioned later on in the Nectar Devotion, like dancing, falling on the ground, singing, crying loudly, stretching the body, making loud sounds, yawning, deep breathing, disregard for others, frothing of saliva at the mouth, mad laughter, spitting, hiccuping, etc. And as well as those, and we get extra ones, such as particular anubhavas for particular rasas. So, for instance, one of the remarkable anubhavas, let's say, of cowherd boys, is they like to play with Krishna and joke with Krishna, like that. Huh? So that's directly in relation to Krishna. Or for those in Vatsalya Bhava, they like to cook for Krishna. These are anubhavas for those in Vatsalya Rasa, or they like to put Krishna to bed or dress Krishna, etc. So different rasas also have particular anubhavas. So these are the general ones. So they manifest to some degree. Some of them may not manifest directly, but through meditation, internally they may manifest instead. So they may not be visible. So this is a preliminary stage of prema. So whatever is manifested in bhava stage becomes more intense in prema. Additionally, in prema, the last anarthas have completely disappeared. Any trace of anartha has disappeared, and let's say the Hladini and Samvit Shaktis become permanently fixed in the Jiva. So then the Jiva never falls from that position of prema in that stage. So the question arises: how does why we have to have 3 stages? Why not just 2? Sadhana and prema. Of course, we have scriptural references to these 2 different stages. So there is a distinction between bhava and prema. That is that, as I said, bhava is not fully developed. But one sense we could say it's classed with prema, so we call the bud of prema, or the sprout of prema ankura. So they're very close together, obviously. And one other difference is, of course, the intensity is not the same. One ray of the sun of prema. Another difference is there is still some anartha, which can cause even fall down in bhava stage. So the case of Bharat Maharaj was he fell down due to some previous aparad. It influenced him in bhava stage, so there was some anartha there, and he got attached to a deer. So you can fall from the stage of bhava. You cannot fall from prema. Okay? So, and of course the symptoms are more intense in prema and less intense in bhava stage. So we have some of these symptoms of sattvika bhavas, but not so intense. Later on in prema they become more intense. So the reason for the difference is the relation with Krishna deepens, the experience of Krishna deepens, the last anarthas disappear, and then rasa manifests fully in prema stage, where it does not manifest fully in the bhava stage. So here we have the distinction between the 2 stages. Nevertheless, we have to distinguish bhava from sadhana. Because here bhava means sthayi bhava has manifested, which is not there in sadhana bhakti. So that's why we concentrate on the Chester Rupa bhakti. So there is a distinction here. So the immediate goal of sadhana is to manifest that sthayi bhava in the bhava stage. So that therefore we make this distinction between sadhana and bhava stage. So for people doing sadhana, in the scriptures, like Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find that the process looks very quick and simple. So we see all the devotees always crying and fainting and doing this. And says if you don't immediately develop tears in the eyes by chanting the name of Gauranga, then your heart is made of stone or something like that. So it looks very, very quick and simple. But we see that realistically speaking, in the modern age, that it takes longer time. It's not such an immediate process. We can say this, of course, not only for Chaitanya Charitamrita, but bhakti in general. They often talk about the quickness of the process. Like the Bhagavad Gita, very quickly I deliver you from the ocean of samsara, whatever like that. So we can say, relatively speaking, yes, it is quick compared to the process of jnana or yoga and all karma, etc. Still, it may take a few births, as we see in the case of Maharaj. He got to Bhava, it took him so long, and then from Bhava it took him 2 more lives to get to Prema. And he was an exalted devotee in Manu's dynasty, so what to speak of us. So it may take us several lifetimes to develop that. And that's the general indication of the acharyas, that we develop over several births, and gradually our bhakti matures, and then finally we get a realization of Krishna. So we have to be a little patient in that regard. Nevertheless, we do have to keep the goal in mind. And that's why we do have these verses here indicating bhava and prema. And in the our tattva we have sambandha, abhidheya, and prayojana. The 3 aspects are topics of scripture. And so prayojana is part of it, not just the sadhana or the tattva, the philosophy. So yes, the process or the method is important, but we cannot separate it from the result. So we have to have some aspiration for the result. Otherwise, we cannot be inspired to do the particular process. If you have no interest in becoming an engineer, then it is very difficult to study for 4 years so intensely if you don't want to get that degree. If you want to do a doctor instead and you had to get an engineering degree, then you wouldn't want to do it. On the other hand, if you were trying to be a doctor and you studied doctoring, fine, then it was easier. So we have to aspire for a certain goal, and therefore the prayojana is given as one of the elements to be understood in scripture. We have sambandha, abhidheya, and prayojana. So but we have to understand bhava and prema as well as sadhana, because it helps inspire us to the goal. It also helps to define the goal. Because the sadhana, a particular sadhana, and produces a certain goal. If we do a different sadhana, we get a different goal. So therefore we do have to understand our exact goal that we want in order to do the sadhana properly. Otherwise we do some other sadhana, we'll get some different result. So therefore the understanding of the goals, that is bhava and prema, are also to some degree necessary for the aspiring devotee. And though it may take several lifetimes, this is the aspiration of the devotee, that he has a long-term goal in mind, and he's willing to endure lifetimes of practice in order to attain the Supreme Lord. And that is one of the reasons why the process takes a long time, in order to increase the determination and patience of the devotee. So as the devotee advances, then the material attraction decreases and decreases. We do not practice vairagya as a separate or as an independent element. It is the natural result of more attraction to the Lord. But at the same time, we do have some restrictions. So the very qualification for bhakti was not too much material attachments. And we see the last aparadha of the holy name is to be too materially attached after understanding all the things. So if you get too much material attachment, very difficult to practice bhakti. So even we may have some faith, difficult. So the real qualification is not too much material attachment for enjoying in the material world. And then to help us, then we try to restrict it to a reasonable degree. We do not cut out all sense gratification. So therefore, we see in the Gaudiya Sampradaya that most Vaishnava Sampradaya is the same, that most of the devotees are grihastas. And they're operating with the Varnashram system. And the Varnashram system is basically a system of sense gratification, which is regulated. So, therefore, they were operating within that system. And through that, developing gradual renunciation by practice of bhakti. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't emphasize renunciation, though he himself took sannyas. He didn't insist on that for his devotees, and most remained grihastas. And most of the sampradaya was grihastas after that as well. But at the same time, we should not think that that the bhakti gives a license for sense gratification because we don't emphasize vairagya as a strong element. No. We don't emphasize vairagya because it also has a negative aspect to it. That is, intense longing for detachment, etc., can lead into impersonalistic type of bhava instead of developing a relationship with Krishna. We become more impersonal in our relationship with the Lord. Therefore, and it also gives rise to pride and other things as well. So, therefore, it's not overemphasized at all. But within the Varna system as the grihastas, there is also some balance there by regulating life with rules and regulations so that they confine their sense gratification within certain limits which are allowable within the Varnashram system. So with that in mind, the devotee practices. And through this gradually one develops more and more attachment to the Lord, less attachment to material things. So therefore, eventually the grihasta can take vanaprastha and become more detached. It's a natural progression as the devotee gets older. And then perhaps later on they take sannyas if they're qualified. So this is the process of gradual renunciation. So Lord Chaitanya encouraged everybody to practice, and he didn't insist one ashram or the other, but according to qualification, then one takes up a certain ashrama and practices from that ashrama.
This question, you spoke in between that even the Bhava Rupa Anushilanam is also cultivated. You said that Anushilanam is Chesta and the Bhava, so activities and emotions. Mm-hmm. So you also told that the emotions are also cultivated. Yeah. Can you please explain this?
Yeah. So that's explained in the sense of, I think Jiva Goswami says that the root of a verb has an active and a passive type of meaning to it. So similarly, Anushilanam has an active sense of cultivating, like you cultivate a field or something like that, so you're doing something with your whole body, whatever. The other is more internal. So we cultivate a relationship with Krishna, but it is through expressing our feelings for Krishna, which doesn't look like cultivation because we're not actively doing something. But in terms of spiritual life, yes, this is also cultivation. Right? And it's not only in sadhana, it's there in bhava and prema. So we're still doing Chesta Rupa Bhakti and Bhava Rupa Bhakti and prema. So we're doing activities, cultivating our relationship with Krishna by serving Krishna in different ways, like Mother Yasoda cooking for Krishna. That's her cultivation of her relationship. That when she cooks for Krishna, and then Krishna responds in some way, and he's happy, whatever, and then he praises Mother Yasoda for her cooking or whatever like that. Mother Yasoda gets a nice feeling from Krishna from that, getting praised by Krishna or whatever. So that's a cultivation of a relationship there. The other is, of course, the activities are actually only expressions of their bhava. If that weren't there, then it would not be bhakti. So there is also another element in the cultivation itself, and that is the emotional element, which we call the sthāyi bhava. So we have a certain loving relationship with the Lord maybe Dasya or Sakya or Vatsalya or Madhurya, that itself is a cultivation of a relationship. And we said it's the basis of the other activities. So the Sthaya Bhava is the basis of the Anubhavas.
Generally, so there are two aspects to, as you explained, activities and emotions. Within the emotions itself, I feel there could be a categorization, because when a person has yet not fixed his goal in a particular rasa, so he or she may not be able to give a particular type of emotional aspirations and emotional cultivation. So there could be a phase before a person decides a particular...
Yeah, well, of course, I was talking about Bhava and Prema there. So before that, the Bhava Rupa is not manifested. It manifests in Bhava stage. That's where the Sthaya Bhava with Hladini and Samvit Shaktis manifest. Before, it's not at that stage. So the flower is not manifested. It's still the plant growing. It doesn't mean there's nothing there, and it doesn't mean that suddenly a flower appears from nowhere. We see a Sakti stage was the bud. So it's almost like Bhava, but then opens up as a flower. So there is some element there, but we don't call it Hladini and Samvit Shaktis at that stage or whatever. So we say the Bhakti is more general before that. The Bhava Rupa Bhakti is in a budding form or a plant form, and then gradually gets a little bit more developed, then it manifests.
Even before that, when a devotee maybe in the Nishtha or maybe before, so there the devotee might not have even fixed the rasa, particular that I wish to have a Madhurya ras or I wish to have Sakhya ras. So even before that, like when we discuss with devotees, we say that repose your emotions towards Krishna and also towards Krishna's service. Like otherwise the emotions get directed towards material goals and material energy. So instead of that, we can redirect it towards Krishna and Krishna Seva, and of course Vaishnava Seva. So can you explain that? Is this understanding correct? When you say emotions have to be cultivated also, so do we understand this way, that those same emotions which are going towards material goals, as you were saying, engineering. So a person has activities, but there is internal emotional aspirations and wantingness, longingness towards a particular goal. So similarly, we redirect and rechannelize this towards Krishna, towards Krishna's service, towards Vaishnava Seva. And of course, later on, one should also fix one's rasa, and then one can redirect emotions in that way also. Is that correct, Maharaj?
Yeah, so we have the two elements. The actions are engaging the senses, and then we have the emotional element that goes with that, or we say the affection. So at the beginning stages, it is not particularized into different rasas or whatever. It's just a general feeling of affection for the Lord and service to the Lord. That's all it is. So it's like a general dasya type of relationship with a feeling of affection. It may not advance beyond that. And you can even get to prema with a very general type of affection for the Lord with no particular rasa. It's a type of shanta rasa, actually. It's just a feeling of one rasa or another. They're all kind of equal like that. So it's considered a weak a weak form of manifestation of prema and shanta. Of course, we in our sampradaya we emphasize madhurya rasa, but so we expect that most people would go in that direction, but others could go in Sakya or Vatsalya as well. In any case, in the beginning stage, it is very general, and it's only the idea of service and a little bit of dasya and mixed in it too, along with some emotional affection.
Like for an example, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, for example, he writes that when Srila Prabhupada went away, so he started thinking, how will I serve Srila Prabhupada? So now the activities he was not able to do. So therefore emotional energy he redirected towards Prabhupada and thought over, how can I please Srila Prabhupada? And then he went to a eucalyptus tree, and he knew that Prabhupada wants this toothpicks and toothbrushes made of, so the neem was not there, so eucalyptus. So he went and he took the branches and he started shaving them and making small things, and then he parceled it to Prabhupada. And then when Prabhupada sent back, thank you so much. So he was saying, he writes in the book that how this was such an inspiration in his life to continue his bhakti, though Prabhupada's association was not there at that time. So I was saying that this is a redirection of one's emotional energy. So instead of directing it towards material goals, passionate goals, money, women, and so many things, so he redirected towards his guru, and of course guru's service. So then that helped him to go further. Of course, further development will happen, rasa will be chosen, etc. So is this understanding correct, and how more we can do that?
Yeah. Well, that actually is the definition of the bhakti as defined, the Krishna Anusilanam. It has the two elements to it. And we cannot just do one of them. We have to do both. And in the beginning, generally we concentrate on the cheshta, the active, okay, here in general. But if there's no emotional element there, then it's also empty. So the two things have to be there. And of course, the guarantee that it is there is that the very qualification is faith. We do have to have a trust and a faith in the Supreme Lord and some positive relationship with Him. So based on that, we start doing the cheshta, and then the bhakti begins to develop. Along with that emotional element is there. Theoretically, of course, we could separate the two things, and we could say that, well, we could just do the cheshta with maybe minimum of even favorable attitude, or very little favorable attitude, but it becomes stronger with the emotional element. That also manifests in the material world. So you have a goal, and you try to achieve a goal. You think about it and whatever like that. It's the intellectual aspect of it. And then you do activities to plan to get to your goal, and studying and doing so many things. If you have an interest in it, and an emotional attachment to the goal, and an expectation of what you're going to get out of the goal, and a feeling from that, then the whole process becomes more powerful, and it's quicker to achieve if you have that emotional element there. So it's compared to electricity and going in one direction towards the goal, but if we have electromagnetic field also, the two combine and we get electromagnetism, it's much stronger. So we get to the goal quicker that way. So the two things combined create a better effect.
Initially, it can be directed towards the Vaishnavas and the seva to the Vaishnavas, just like I gave example. Guru.
Yeah.
And Maharaj, also you said that first time I heard about that, how the part of Antaranga Shakti gets fixed in the Tatastha Shakti.
Yeah.
That was quite interesting. That means the Tatastha Shakti is actually changing. It's basically getting a part
of an addition.
Yes.
Yeah.
An addition, which was not previously existing. But now it is existing.
So that means the jivas in the spiritual world are different from the jivas in the material world, because they have this antaranga shakti inside them, and the jivas in the material world don't. So there's some difference there.
So, but then this whole theory of Jiva has fallen from the spiritual world is actually refuted from your explanation.
Like that, yeah.
Because a part of Antaranga Shakti is not there in the Jivas in the material world. We also, however, say, so Maharaj, I think you could probably write a book on this particular topic. Because it needs a lot of explanation, because many of us, we hear from you, and of course we read other books also, we get a partial understanding. But if Acharya like you writes a whole understanding about this, it would be a very good addition to devotees' understanding. Because my understanding was, as you were saying, that unless our goal is very much fixed and we are hankering for it, we actually don't increase our sadhana also. So similarly, if we say to people that actually anyway we have fallen from spiritual world, and anyway our rasa is fixed, you can't change it, you are already a gopi or whatever, and then you just assume that form. So then people become, my observation, maybe of my own self maybe, is that one becomes casual. And one feels, anyway I just chant and I don't have to worry too much and I'll just get it. Whereas if you know that I will miss the goal, if I am not very serious and fixed upon, like you explained about Raganuga sadhana and then Gopi's footsteps or whatever, unless I do that, I actually don't get this result. So then the hankering is created. And then even though I am not qualified, but I am hankering for it. And then one day, Krishna willing, Guru's mercy will come and we can become qualified. So that's was the difference what I understood. That if we just say I am coming from spiritual world anyways, the size is fixed, the intensity is very low. Whereas understanding that I am here, I have to get a part of Antaranga Shakti and I have to hanker for it, it really increases one's intensity. This is
another way of looking at it is in the Damodar Leela, that's explained that why Krishna got bound up and there were two factors. One was intense endeavor. The other, of course, is Krishna's mercy. But Krishna's mercy doesn't come usually unless there is intense endeavor. And that's how you can control Krishna and see Krishna and serve Krishna, bring him under control in bhava and prema. So you have to put forth the intense endeavor. If that intense endeavor isn't there, then generally Krishna does not show such mercy.
We also say that we don't have to aspire for a result. Sometimes we say, because ahaituki apratihata means you don't aspire for a result. You don't want anything from Krishna. So then how do we add that I want answer?
No, because what that means is no material result for ourselves. It calls us in the sense we don't want something for ourselves. That's one sense of ahaituki. So in other words, anya abhilasha shunya, no other desire. But we do have the desire to serve Krishna. That is there, and that's very intense. So we don't give up all desires. So when we say a desire to attain Krishna or to attain prema, we understand not something for ourselves. We're understanding we're attaining service to Krishna. We're trying to please Krishna, actually. So desire is not given up, but rather it is desire for Krishna's pleasure.
So one can aspire for, say, Madhurya Ras, not thinking that Madhurya Ras is best and therefore I should become the best devotee, but thinking that this is the best form of service, at least Gaudiya, they explain, this best form of service which I can render to Krishna. So if Krishna wills, I can do this service to him. Krishna blesses me with this. This is the way we think about it. Any other questions anyone has? Please.
Maharaj, in this context that you are saying that Antaranga Shakti is added, it's an added element to the Tatastha Shakti, the stage of Bhava. Then what does it mean when we say that Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabuna?
Yeah, it's from the definition in the Nectar Devotion. In Sadhana Bhakti actually says that the definition of sadhana is engagement of the senses to attain bhava, and that bhava is nitya siddha. It manifests in the heart. It's not created. It's eternal. So it's eternally with Krishna in the spiritual world, and it manifests in your heart at that stage. So that's nitya siddha. So in other words, whatever sthayi bhava you establish is eternally in the spiritual world, in the associates of Krishna there, and then we can say that there, and then it manifests a portion that manifests within particular jiva.
Usually in Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada usually he adds this example, analogy for this, that just like a child, his natural tendency is to walk, a baby, but it has to be cultivated. So as the child keeps...
Well, in one sense we can say that, but if that were so, then every jiva in the material world would get bhakti, wouldn't they? But they don't. So it's natural in one sense because it's a propensity, and every jiva is capable of it. But then it also requires particular process to, let's say, manifest it. So it's manifested as a seed, actually, planted by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. Before that, the seed isn't even there. Potential is there, definitely. You can grow the seed, but then even then you need shraddha in order that the seed grow. So you need shraddha and you need the seed. But any jiva could get the shraddha and could get the seed, but they don't because it takes time or whatever, and mercy of devotees.
One analogy was...
we can say that in one sense, yes, all the jivas are perfect already in Krishna's eyes, but it takes time for them to develop. It may take many, many lifetimes of Brahma or whatever like that. So potentially it's there, but it's not manifested practically until we get mercy of devotees, get shraddha, then we get seed of bhakti.
When I was discussing this with one devotee, similar thing comes up, that the walking capacity is within the jiva, within the child, so it just manifests later on. But as you rightly said, that it's not automatically, it actually gets. He has to do some sadhana. So I was explaining about a vessel analogy, which also is given somewhere, that just like a vessel has the capacity to hold a particular rasa or liquid, doesn't mean that in itself it has it.
Yeah.
It has to receive it from somewhere. But where is it? The source may be eternal.
Yeah.
Whereas right now it's not. In this vessel does not have it, so it has to get filled.
Yeah.
And it gets filled because we are living vessels, so therefore we have to do chesta for it as well as we have to receive it.
Yeah. Also in the nectar or in the Jiva Dharma there, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that what is Jiva Dharma or the Dharma of the Jiva? It is prema. So for all jivas, the real Dharma is prema, which is nitya. But then the question was, well, it's not nitya because the jivas don't have prema in the material world. So how is it possible we call that nitya? It's the nitya dharma of the jiva. Huh? And then of course he says, ultimately you cannot answer that question from a material point of view because we're in the material world and we're subject to material time and all of our concepts of past, present, future, etc. are stuck to our concepts of existence, etc. So therefore we'll judge everything in terms of, having not, before I didn't have, now I have, or whatever like that. Huh? So I said, only when you're in the spiritual world then you understand how prema is eternally in the jiva.
Anybody else has any questions?
Maharaj, many acharyas have written Vaishnava bhajans, a lot of Vaishnava bhajans. So they are already in Bhava or Prema usually. But what is the role of these bhajans, Vaishnava bhajans in devotee sadhana?
What is the role?
Role of Vaishnava bhajans.
Oh, well, some of them are quite different. There's different types. Some are teaching, like Bhaktivinoda knows a lot are teaching. So he explains about Navaveda Bhakti and so many other things, surrender, all this sort of thing. Others are expressing we see in Nectar Devotion that one type of prayer is, offering yourself or expressing your longing for the Lord, so many different things like this. So they're expressing the sentiments of the devotee in longing for the Lord. We saw that longing was also one aspect of Bhava stage. We long for the Lord's mercy or whatever like that. So a lot of the verses are longing for getting the Lord's mercy, etc. So they're expressions of the sentiments of the devotees in Bhava and Prema.
We also said that the process may take a little longer time, and in order to continue for that long time, one should increase the determination.
Yeah.
Determination. So can you explain, Maharaj, how we can increase our determination?
Well, I think that's also one aspect of a qualification, that we have to be patient and tolerant, etc. I explained in the Nectar of Instruction, we have the certain qualifications which are encouraging. They may not be there initially, but they should develop along with the development of bhakti. We know that the nature of bhakti is to develop all good qualities and destroy all bad qualities. So then among the good qualities we can say is determination and patience and tolerance, etc. So these things should naturally develop along with the process of bhakti. At the same time, we can say at the very beginning of bhakti we do have some initial minimum qualification in that surrender and in that faith. So that is why we have like Trinadapi Sunichina, humility is there, tolerance, respect, etc. So some initial qualifications are also inherent within the attitude of surrendering to the Lord. And so I say determination would also be there. That, in other words, faith means that strong conviction that by worshipping Krishna everything is attained. So we have some strong conviction there, and that leads to determination.
Any Bhataji's have any question? Last question. Last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, from a sadhaka's point of view, what should be his attitude, moment to moment attitude throughout the whole day, especially during particular activities which he is doing throughout the whole day? For example, during the morning program, during his job hours in office, while he is performing services. What should be his moment to moment attitude towards so that he can attain Vraj Bhakti quickly?
Well, it may differ with individuals, but in general we can say somehow we relate everything to Krishna. Now, we do have the direct activities of bhakti, which are a direct relationship. So chanting, obviously, is we're praising the Lord. So it's a direct activity, trying to please the Lord, or hearing, etc. So we have no problem with the direct activities of bhakti. They're directly related with the Lord. And we simply have to try to concentrate on developing some affection within those activities. So in other words, the Bhava Rupa and the Chesta Rupa aspects of it. As for other activities, it's a little more indirect. But we relate them, and the only reason we're doing these activities is to support our material body and our family. But then the whole purpose of that, again, is to serve Krishna. So we can say indirectly related by supporting our body so we can do our devotional service. Yeah.
Come, let's thank His Holiness Bhava Swami Maharaj. 3 times loudly chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Devotees can come in.